On the wedding day, my boyfriend's first love showed up, the woman who captured his heart and then walked away. Her eyes were red, and she didn't say a word. George held her in his arms, feeling sorry for her. So dumb. Why are you crying? What's this, a wedding crasher? Watching them walk away together, I almost burst out laughing. This is great. I don't have to marry this antisocial psycho anymore. George was my first love. During his toughest 5 years, I was there for him. He fell for Lily, the girl who captured and ditched him, causing a rift with his family. Yet, after she left, George was shattered. He drank until he had a stomach bleed and ended up in the hospital after speeding one night. I cared for him tirelessly and helped him get back on his feet. Finally, after 5 years, he agreed to marry me. But on our wedding day, right when we were about to exchange rings, Lily showed up again. She didn't say anything, just stood there with slightly red eyes, and George went crazy. He dropped the ring and rushed to her, desperately holding her tight as if afraid she'd vanish again from afar. Lily smiled at me, a smug smile. As if to say, look, Susan, I don't need to do anything. Just by standing here, I can easily surpass your years of effort. The guests were in shock. George's father was furious, and threw his cane at Lily. Unworthy child, yelled his father. George shielded her, his forehead got smashed and blood started flowing briskly. Lily, upset, touched his wound, her face streaked with tears. George. He took her hand, intertwining their fingers shamelessly, speaking gently. So dumb. Why are you crying? What's with this wedding crashing? Can't you just say, come with me? Her tears flowed even more. George, would you still come with me? He smiled softly, his words sincere. I said it before, as long as you come, I'll go with you. That promise is forever valid. George's father was on the brink of passing out in anger, but nobody could stop them. Hand in hand, they left with determination. Lily looked back at me with a triumphant glance and mouthed, I told you, I'd win again. Yes, she had visited me last night. She eyed my wedding dress and laughed. Susan, this dress was designed for me years ago by him. I couldn't argue. Because she was right, even the size fit her, not me, making it hard to walk. But I still smiled sweetly at George, saying I loved it. She taunted me, flaunting her watch. A white pair to George's black one. Not a fancy brand or anything, but because she gave it to him, he never took it off. He'd snap if I even touched it. Back in high school, she'd stomped on my dignity the same way. So, what if I've hurt him before? And you? You've been with him for 5 years? Wanna bet I'll win tomorrow too? Tears welling up, I pleaded with her, stay away from him. You tricked him, betrayed him, he'll end up tormenting you. She laughed, torment me? What do you understand? I'm his first love, eternally pure. Watching them walk away now, perfectly matched, I dropped my head in solitude, reliving all the tragic moments of my life just to avoid laughing. I believed her. Of course, you could win against me. I wanted her to win more than anyone, or else I'd have to marry George, that psycho. I've long known that this world is like a novel. George is the protagonist, Lily the heroine, and me, the venomous side character blocking their way. If not for following the plot, I'd have pulled the plug on George in the hospital ages ago. He's a full-fledged sociopath. He's known all along that he's the main character, the ruler of this world. Outwardly, he's the perfect gentleman, the perfect son. But to him, everyone is just a plaything for his entertainment. Back in high school, I saw a girl confess to him firsthand. George, I like you. He looked down at her, smiled softly, really? Would you die for me? Her cheeks flushed, and she nodded without hesitation. The next second, he slit her throat. Blood sprayed like a fountain, splattering his face. He wiped it off carelessly with the back of his hand, smiled hauntingly, and asked me, hiding in the corner. What did you see? Pale as a sheet, I stammered, I saw nothing. But when he likes someone, that's when he's terrifying. Because that person becomes his favorite toy. He'd affectionately caress my trembling cheeks, whispering like a venomous snake. "Don't worry, I like you too much to just kill you." Back then, he treated me incredibly well, complying with everything I said. Being the high-standing son of the family, while I was only the maid's daughter, I would often be bullied at school. There was once a boy who, in public, crudely tugged at my bra strap, stretching it out, and suddenly let go. That day after school, he was kneeling before me. George admired his slender fingers and sighed, "Such beautiful hands." And then stomped on them, reveling in the sound of breaking bones and the boy's cries of pain. He smiled with satisfaction, just as pleasing as I imagined every night. He'd sneak into my maid's room, holding me tight, kissing me passionately. He loved biting my lips until they bled, savoring the metallic taste. He had a thing for blood, especially my blood. But when the strategy girl Lily transferred to our school, everything changed. She looked down at me. "You're George's childhood friend?" I nodded. She sneered at me, "Stop fooling yourself. He likes you now because I wasn't here. And I am his destined heroine." I kindly warned her, "Stay away from him. He's not someone you should mess with." She scoffed, "Someone like him, you obviously can't handle. I, on the other hand, am different." After she appeared, George soon got bored with me and liked her. So every day after school, I ended up being the one on my knees on the ground. Lily had someone shove a frog in my mouth and clapped her hands in delight while I looked terrified and pained. George stood nearby and gently tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear when the wind messed it up. Was it fun for him? That was a softness I'd never seen before. She soaked up his affection and smirked at me like she was showing off. But I turned away and couldn't help but laugh. She probably didn't know yet. The more George liked someone, the better he treated them. Before things turned nasty. But after she succeeded in her conquest, she vanished before seeing George's true colors. George nearly lost his mind back then. Not because of anything else, but because he laid out such a big bait and didn't get the long-awaited reward. Marrying me was just one of his chess moves, a step to lure Lily back. Lily looked down on me the most. How could she stand me marrying George and taking her place as the leading lady in this world? George soon brought Lily back to the villa. I wasn't surprised because I had overheard Lily's conversation with her system before. "Host," it said, "you've already earned a $500,000 reward for completing the last mission. Are you sure you want to take on another task?" "Of course," she replied. "If I can just take everything Susan has, I can stay here, right? What's so great about the real world? Here, I'm the only leading lady. But if you fail, you'll be erased." She laughed. A task this simple, failing should be harder than succeeding. Lily moved in confidently. George knelt before his parents, saying he wanted to marry her. At first, his parents were adamantly against it. His mother cried bitterly in protest. "After all, Susan's mom saved my life in the car accident. And this girl has been by your side for 5 years. You're thinking about letting this woman in? Don't even think about it." But eventually, her tone softened. "The more I look at Lily, the more I like her. You should just treat Susan as a sister, okay? No life-saving debt or 5-year companionship could compete with a protagonist's aura." I even lost the room I'd lived in for years just because Lily pouted for it. George's mom casually said, "Let her have it if she likes it. For the daughter of a maid, giving you a place to stay is already pretty generous on our part." Lily smugly pushed me into the maid's quarters and slapped me several times. "You think you can compete with me?" I dragged her to see George's basement. It was covered in bloodstains and filled with his torture tools. Tearfully, I told her that George was genuinely a psycho, and I was only looking out for her. She got more excited, yanked my hair, and said, "So what? He loves me, won't hurt me, and will kill everyone I hate for me, including you. I'll have him give you a good lesson tonight for always getting in our way." That night, George indeed went into my maid's quarters. He stood by my bed with a knife, gleaming and as if deciding how to finish me off. "Susan," he said, "Lily told me to give you a good lesson." My voice trembled. "Are you going to kill me?" He leaned down and kissed me madly, excitement he couldn't hide in his voice. How could I? I came to ask how you want me to do her in, turn her into a night creature for my beloved Susan, just like with target number 15. What should I do, target 49? Even if everyone loves you, the protagonist, your Yandere male lead only loves me, an NPC. I shook my head, no. He rained hot, damp kisses on my swollen cheeks, his voice hoarse enough to ignite fire. Why make me hold back? I can't stand it any longer. I just want to kill her. I stroked his soft lips with my thumb. If you're naughty, I won't like you anymore. His eyes turned red, overflowing with feelings in his dark eyes. I went along with her scheme and walked away with her at the wedding. I've done everything. Why must I stay with her? I'm only yours. I smiled sweetly, because I only like things that belong to others, including men. The room was terribly silent. He kissed my collarbone, softly murmuring, all right, whatever Susan wants, I'll do. The next day, Lily tore off my clothes to reveal my bruised skin beneath. Pretending to be shocked, she exclaimed, I just asked George to give you a simple lesson. How could he hurt you like this? Doesn't he care about you at all? She then poured a cup of hot tea over my wounds, saying, heat compresses are best for this type of injury to heal faster. The skin reddened instantly, blisters forming, making me kneel in pain. She grabbed my hair and said, bow your head a few times to make me happy, and I'll have George let you go. I obeyed like a dog, my forehead bruising from the pressure. She clapped her hands, laughing happily. I saw George's dark eyes at the door, and I smiled as well. He walked in, lips moving in a silent count. Lily looked around joyfully. What are you saying? He smiled gently. 25. She boasted. Yeah, she bowed 25 times. I was all too familiar with that kind smile. Target 28 burned me with a cigarette 8 times, and it was with that same gentle smile that he told her 8 before stabbing her 8 times. Not long after, Lily returned with servants, all holding dog food and toys. She looked around disgusted, saying, where's your filthy mutt? Even though I loathe such lowly breeds most, because it belongs to you, I must take it away. Her mission this time was to take my Nina. That stray dog was one that Mom had saved and given me for my 20th birthday. But a month after that birthday, my mom died in a car accident. She deliberately pushed George's mom out of the way to die in her place. Because she had pancreatic cancer, she wanted to use her life to secure my future. Even on her deathbed, barely able to breathe, she comforted me with a barely audible whisper, don't cry, Nina will look after you after I'm gone. But now Nina was about to be taken too. It heard the sound of food, wagging its tail excitedly as it ran to Lily. It had never seen so much delicious food and fun toys before. I almost begged it, Nina, come here. But it ignored me, happily burying its head in the food. Lily walked over, patted my face, and smirked with disdain. Susan, I'm the leading lady. You're the wicked supporting role. No matter how hard you try, you're not worthy of any love. Your mom doesn't want you, George doesn't want you, and now even this dog doesn't want you. As an NPC, your life is meaningless. Your existence is to drive the plot. So, don't desire things that aren't yours. My eyes reddened as I angrily grabbed her throat. My mom never abandoned me. She crazily laughed. Go ahead, kill me if you can. My grip tightened, and her face turned bluish-purple. But the next second, a bunch of pain exploded inside me like firecrackers. I dropped to my knees in agony. Lily stomped on my head. Straying from the plot means the system punishes you. In this world, only the protagonists have freedom, got it? You lowlife NPC. After she left, I looked up and wiped away my tears. Don't worry, mighty protagonist. I will kill you and that system that took my freedom. You won't get away with it, neither of you. Nina quickly forgot me. No longer would she run happily, wagging her tail towards me. But I don't blame her. In this world, NPCs are just machines following orders, acting out scenes assigned by the system. We have no right to fight back. We are characters nobody loves from the start. Lily let go of the leash, kneeled, patted Nina's head, and pointed at me, tauntingly. Go, bite her. As soon as her voice fell, Nina charged at me. I couldn't fight back, so I closed my eyes in despair. But the expected pain never came. When I opened my eyes, Nina stood quietly in front of me, eyes glistening like she'd been caught in the rain. Lily was furious. She screamed harshly. What are you doing? I told you to bite her. I'm your owner. Nina didn't move, just looked at me silently, then lowered her head and licked my hand. Just like she had 1,000,000 times over the past 5 years, that's how she showed love. Then she turned and bolted towards Lily. Lily screamed because Nina had bitten her leg fiercely. Bright red blood dripped down like broken beads. She hit Nina crazily. Dumb dog, are you insane? How dare you bite me? Tears poured out, almost drowning me. She wasn't insane, she was defying the system to protect me. She was keeping her promise to her mom. Nina soon whimpered, shaking. She was punished by the system. Lily took the chance to grab her leg, smashing her head hard on the ground with a thud. I rushed over to hold her, blood trickling from her mouth. She was gone. Lily looked at us with disdain. NPCs are still NPCs, even if they wake up. See? This is what happens when you hurt the protagonist. She squatted down, smirking as she patted my face. Susan, this is just the appetizer. The real fun is yet to come. I held Nina's body from dawn till dusk. Her warmth slowly seeped through my fingers, until she was cold as ice, chilling me to the core. George sprinted over and hugged me tightly, his eyes bloodshot, his voice icy and hoarse. I'll kill her now, chop her up and feed her to the dogs. I bit down hard on his shoulder, the taste of blood filling my mouth. No. Even if you tear her apart, new challengers will keep coming, and I'll still be a powerless NPC. I forced a smile bit by bit. Besides, what's fun about killing her? She's right, the real fun is yet to come. I opened Nina's closed eyes little by little. Nina, you have to watch carefully how I send those who caused your death to hell. George treated Lily better and better, and she liked him more and more. Even just receiving a music box from me made her insanely jealous, smashing it to pieces. Dare let him look at you again, and that's what you'll get. Tears in my eyes, I trembled like a leaf. But as soon as she left, I smiled joyfully. She had finally fallen in love with him. Not to take him away from me entirely, but truly fell for him. Every failed attempt uses up a lot of energy for the system in this world. The more the plot progresses, the bigger the drain. So the system fears failure even more than the challengers do. I heard the system inform Lily, host, the system detected some anomalies with the male lead. She was anxious. Is he into Susan again? The system replied, I haven't detected specifics yet. Reminder, if this task fails, you will be erased permanently, unable to exist in any space in any form. You have one last chance to terminate the task and return to the real world. Do you choose to terminate? Lily was silent for a long time and said she needed some time to think. The next day, George came to her, arms full of gifts. Expensive watches, diamond necklaces, high-end dresses, each worth 100 times that music box. These gifts are what I owe you from the past 5 years. Now I'm giving them to you. He explained each to her. These earrings were for Valentine's Day when you said you loved them. This pearl necklace was for your 24th birthday. Before he finished speaking, Lily had already started crying, emotional. She angrily demanded, then why does Susan get something too? George helplessly smiled. That music box was a free gift from a store. I'd never give you something like that. She smiled knowingly, looking at me smugly. Yeah, after all, different stuff for different people. That night, I heard her excitedly tell the system, I'm staying here for George, to be his leading lady. And her leading man? That night, he pinned me against the wall, his hand squeezing my neck as he kissed me. His hand was on my waist, burning hot, and his voice was raspy like it had been scorched. Susan, say you love me. I hooked my arms around his neck, tilted my head back, and kissed his throat, whispering, I love you. His pupils trembled as he let out a muffled groan. I glanced at Lily, who was beaming with those gifts, and slowly smiled. Dear strategy partner, no. 49. Welcome to my hunting ground. Lily got into a car accident, damaging her kidney function. She needed a transplant. Even lying pale in the hospital bed, her expression was as arrogant as ever. Susan, you better take care of your body lately. After all, your kidney is about to be mine, so don't wear it out. This was her last mission, to take my life. As long as George forced me to donate my kidney to her, I'd die, and she'd complete her task. I looked at her with watery eyes, seemingly pitiful. Why should I give you my kidney? It's like she heard something hilarious. She couldn't stop giggling. Why? Because George loves me. I want your life, and he'd give it to me just like that. Confident, she pulled out her phone to call George. But her face gradually fell. George didn't pick up her call. Nervously, she dialed again and again. But all her calls vanished without a trace. I leaned down, watching her with interest. Don't waste your time. Haven't you noticed he hasn't visited you once since your accident? She grabbed my hand, her nails digging into my flesh in panic. Her wide eyes were filled with fear, regret, pain, and disbelief. Then she thrashed around, smashing everything in the room to pieces. She panted heavily, her voice shrill enough to pierce my eardrums. Susan, you bitch. Stop trying to drive a wedge between us. I know you hate me for taking everything from you. George loves me dearly. Just wait, he'll soon dig out your kidney for me. But George never showed up. Every single day, it was me who faithfully stayed by her side. Because watching her suffer was just too thrilling for me. After a week, she couldn't take it anymore. Like a dog, she crawled to me, clinging to my pant leg, begging, Susan, please, let me see him. Her vacant eyes were bereft of any life, shedding tears like a discarded doll, broken beyond repair. I truly enjoyed her state of despair and pity, so I watched for a long time before smiling sweetly. All right, I'll take you to him. I brought her to George's basement. The walls were streaked with blood, the stench overwhelming. Just walking in made her gag. I politely excused myself, sorry, he has a bad habit of not cleaning up after a kill. Leading her forward, I spoke warmly. Lily's face gradually drained of color. All the way to the last room in the basement. I opened the door with a grin. Inside was a metal cage, a man imprisoned within. His body was covered in wounds, no unscathed patch in sight. Seeing me, he rushed to the cage door, wildly shaking it and howling at me. Lily shrieked, collapsing. She pointed, her hand trembling. Why does he look exactly like George? I kindly helped her up. My esteemed leading lady, that is your real leading man. The one you fell for was a fake George. I pulled her to the cage, introducing her enthusiastically. George, meet strategy partner no. 49. He said nothing, just glared at me hatefully, banging his head against the bar. He was irritated. Why don't you greet her? That's rude. Oh, right, since you kept insulting me. Stephen had your mouth sewn shut yesterday, so you can't speak. Lily's face whitened instantly, her whole body shaking. Stephen is George's twin brother. But didn't he die at 16? I nodded approvingly. Yes, my foolish leading lady, both you and the system were fooled by us two NPCs. The system gasped softly, so the issue with the leading man was here. He got switched. Lily turned to run, but was knocked unconscious after just a few steps. Stephen, the NPC pretending to be the leading man, dragged her towards me. I'm Susan, a malicious supporting character in a novel. George, the leading man, told me this. At 16, I was madly obsessed with my first love, George. Even though he was a sociopath, I still liked him a lot. I couldn't understand why I liked him. One night after evening self-study, he took me to a hotel. He tore my school trousers, and when I cried and resisted, he slapped me so hard I nearly passed out. Why are you crying? I'm the leading man of this world. You're just one of my lapdogs. You should be grateful I'm sleeping with you. That night, it was more than just him, there were many of his friends. I don't remember how many. I only remember my underwear stained with blood, my body covered in wounds. So later, I killed them all. George was the last I killed, but after killing him, it felt like something was tearing my insides apart. Then I died too. When I opened my eyes again, I was a child, and everything reset. I gradually realized that I was an NPC. In this world, I'm playing the role of the nasty supporting character. My job's basically to fawn over the male lead and get in the way of the main couple's romance. At the end of the day, I'm just a tool. My only purpose is to make the heroine look better and push the male and female lead closer. I'm vile and laughable, and no matter how hard I try, I get nothing in return. I am doomed to a tragic end the system already wrote for me. But in this world, I have parents and friends. The happiness and hardships we went through together feel so real and touching. I have things I want to do, places I want to go, people I want to love. Why should I act like a robot, mindlessly following orders? Why should I always stand in the shadows, just a bland background character? Why must I play the same boring conquest game with the main couple over and over? I've started pushing back against this world. But I can't actually do anything off script or the system will punish me hard. This world runs around the main couple. They have total freedom and priority. All the NPCs serve them. After countless attempts, I came up with a plan. The NPC seeking system plan. I couldn't act freely, so I needed someone who could act as my knife. Since the male lead George wouldn't listen, I decided to replace him. So I found Steven's George's twin and his contrast. Steven has always worked super hard, but as an NPC, no matter how much effort he put in, George, who didn't even try, always overshadowed him. So even though they're twins, their parents always favored George and hated Steven like an enemy. They'd lock him in a dark room, beating him like crazy. They'd yell in his face, "How did we end up with such a useless son? Should have drowned you in the toilet back then." All because George is the male lead, with a protagonist's glow. Steven's existence was just to highlight George. Later, it was said Steven drowned, but I know he didn't die. George locked him up, like an animal in a cage. George hated Steven because his hard-working spirit was annoying to George. Why live so energetically as an NPC? So, he locked Steven in the basement, torturing him in different ways. Steven's body was covered with scabs that never healed. Sunlight spilled in from a small, high window but never reached him. He stretched out his hand for it, but before he felt its warmth, George would crush his fingers. He wilted like a plant without light, slowly rotting in the dark. George loved seeing him lie on the ground like a dog, unable to get up. He laughed. That's how an NPC should look. I reached out to Steven in the cage. "Come on, let's break out of this prison." I was talking about both the cage he was in and the system's cage trapping us NPCs. The one keeping us stuck in the story. He hesitated, reaching out then pulling back. His eyes were dark, without a hint of light. I'm a waste of space. No matter how much I try, I can't catch up to George. Nobody likes me, not even my parents. George says I belong in this dark cage. I held his dirty hand. "You're not useless. Some people are so dumb and mean, they can't shine, so they just snuff out others." I leaned in, my breath grazed his neck, making him shiver. He's the one who belongs in a cage. So, why don't we put him in there? He looked at me, eyes lighting up. "If that's what you want, I'll do it." From that day on, Steven took over as the male lead, and George became the NPC locked in a cage. And the system noticed nothing. The system gets energy by running the world according to the story. So it keeps luring girls from the real world with money to play the game's female lead. Those strategy girls were just ordinary people, the kind of girls who blend into the crowd. But once they're here, they magically become heroines everyone loves without lifting a finger. They live on top in this world, above every power, and all NPCs are at their mercy. These once weak girls become strong, and the first thing they do is strike at the weak. That's why they love bullying me. Real George would join them, 'cause they made him happy while trying to win him over. He knows they're gaming him, but he enjoys it and gives them rewards. In his eyes, what am I? Just a dog. If I die, so what? Steve's different, though he says he's my dog, even now as the male lead, ruling this world. He's willing to be my dog forever, just an NPC's dog. Every time the conquest fails, the system loses energy. The more story we go through, the greater the energy drain when we fail at the last minute. So we had to follow the story, draining its power. I got tortured and bullied again and again by 48 different players. Then Steven would kill them one by one, making them suffer hundreds of times the pain I felt. But in all 48 tries, we couldn't kill the system. So on the 49th, I had Steven go along with Lily's strategy. Then we lured her back for a second mission. Since Lily successfully completed her second mission, she unlocked a hidden storyline. She can stay here forever as the protagonist, and the system will receive a huge energy source as a reward. This energy will keep it going indefinitely. But if she fails, she'll be eliminated, the system's energy will run out, and it'll lose control over this world. It's a huge gamble. Everyone at the table is betting. Lily woke up, finding herself tightly bound, and struggled crazily. In the next room, Steven was sharpening a knife. I swung on the swing, my white dress swaying with a hint of blood on it, like a rose blooming in the night. I gave her a sweet, innocent smile and said, "You're awake." I smiled so beautifully, but she cried out in fear, "Why?" I clearly completed the strategy successfully. Even if he isn't the male lead, his affection for me should be full. He should love me. Next door, Steven didn't stop sharpening his knife, and in fact sped up a bit. I hopped off the swing and gently touched her trembling cheek, because your system is too stupid. It judges affection based on the male lead's actions. But Steven's real affection value for you is negative. Do you know what's keeping him pretending to love you? Her hair was a mess, and tears rolled down from her swollen eyes. I whispered in her ear with a joyful laugh, "It was to kill you." You're right, a first love is always pure. But too bad, I'm his first love. Lily frantically called her system, "Force punishment. Force punishment. The NPC is going to harm the protagonist." An electronic voice replied, "It's useless, host. Your mission has failed, and you'll soon be eliminated. My energy is also running out, and I've lost control over this world." It sighed in disbelief. How is that possible? How can you two NPCs with nothing possibly beat me? I sat back on the swing, swinging higher and higher, my voice mixed with the wind, drifting far away. Because you only see the surface, you can't hear the roar in each NPC's heart, a shout loud enough to shake the heavens. It's our cry for freedom. Steven's knife was sharpened to a dazzling shine, bright enough to reflect a person's image. His voice was so cold, it could freeze your blood. "You made Susan kneel 25 times, so I'll cut you into 25 pieces." Lily finally broke down, tears flowing as she struggled desperately, fear and despair written all over her pretty face. Steven, expressionless, put a frog in her open mouth, just like she did to me back then. All she could do was whimper brokenly through her throat. Steven suddenly turned, smiling gently at me, "Susan, I'm about to dismember her. It'll be bloody. Wanna wait for me somewhere else?" I was silent for a long time, then shook my head, smiling happily. "I definitely want to stay for such a great scene." Epilogue, the system vanished and the world rebooted. George, without his protagonist halo, was just a total waste and creep. His parents stopped favoring him, and he was fairly recognized for what he was, trash. At 16, he went to jail for rape. That's appropriate for someone like him, locked away forever. Finally, people noticed Steven's hard work and brains. True to his name, he lived brightly and splendidly. "I am Susan, not some villain. I'm just Susan. I don't ruin anyone's love. My love is always noble and free. No more weird women stealing from me and then bullying me. I have the best mom in the world, who works as a live-in nanny. She's hardworking, enthusiastic, and kind. She won't get cancer because the system wants to tie her daughter to George, dying just to win George's family's gratitude and support. She'll live a healthy, happy life for a long time. She adopted a stray dog, a mutt. She named it Nina and gave it to her beloved daughter Susan as a 20th birthday gift. She wants my life to be filled and complete. As she wished, every day I'm happy. Right now, I'm lounging on the couch, soaking up the sun. Nina wagged her tail, darting over to snuggle in my lap, licking my hand. I know that's her way of showing love. So, I sat up and ruffled her furry head, warmly replying, Nina, I like you too. The man next to me wasn't happy. He pulled me closer, surprising me as I landed on his lap. His hand rested on my waist, his eyes narrow as he watched me. Who did you just say you like? I chuckled, pulling on his tie. Steven, are you crazy? In the next second, he pulled me into his embrace, kissing me deeply. His taste and warmth filled my mouth. After a long while, he finally released me, nibbled my earlobe, and murmured, You can only like me. I sighed on his shoulder. Steven, Nina's a dog. He lowered his head, kissing me again, his voice husky and hot. I'm also your puppy. Now, tell me, who's your favorite puppy? I was almost out of breath from his kisses, pleading, Fine, you're my favorite. He held my face, his eyes overflowing with emotion, almost drowning me. Then it settled. This life, the next life, and the one after that, you can only love me most. Okay?